In the high valleys of the Carpathian Mountains, fog was not unusual. It rolled down slopes at dawn. It clung to pine branches at dusk. It swallowed roads without warning. But this fog came at noon. And it did not move. The village of Kryvorivnya had seen harsh winters, landslides, even wolves descending from the ridges, yet no one remembered the mist standing still like this. It did not drift. It hovered. As if deciding something. Andriy returned to the village the same day the fog appeared. He hadn't been back in 12 years. City life had carved sharp edges into him, deadlines, traffic, concrete, neon lights that never allowed true darkness. When his father died, Andriy sold the small apartment in Ivano-Frankivsk and inherited the old wooden house at the village edge. He came only to finalize documents. To leave again. That was the plan. But when his bus dropped him off at the crossroads, he noticed something strange. No sound. No dogs barking. No axe striking wood. No distant laughter. Just fog. Thick. Watching. His father's house stood exactly as he remembered, dark timber walls, steep roof, windows like tired eyes. But something was missing. Its shadow. The sun burned above the mist, yet the house cast nothing behind it. The ground was evenly gray. As if light refused to touch it. Andriy blinked, assuming exhaustion from travel. Still. No shadow. He stepped closer. The door was unlocked. Inside, dust floated in unmoving air. The old kitchen clock ticked loudly. Too loudly. Tick. 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 But the hands did not move. They were frozen at 12:17. Andriy checked his phone. No signal. 12:17, the same. He frowned. Power outages were common in the mountains, but frozen time was not. The clock ticked again. Louder. And this time, he realized something impossible. It wasn't ticking forward. It was ticking backward. A knock came from the front door. 3 slow taps. When Andriy opened it, old Mikhailo stood there, the village beekeeper. His face looked older than 12 years could explain. You came on the wrong day, Mikhailo said. What day? The day it chooses. Andriy exhaled sharply. Chooses what? But Mikhailo did not answer. Instead, he looked at the fog. And whispered, it doesn't take everyone. By evening, the fog thickened. Andriy watched from the window as shapes moved within it. Not walking. Gliding. He told himself it was imagination. Until a scream cut through the air. Short. Sudden. Silenced. From the direction of the church. The scream ended too quickly. Like a candle pinched between fingers. Moments later, the church bell began to ring. Once. Twice. Then stopped mid-swing. The fog swallowed the sound. Andriy stepped outside without thinking. The mist closed around him instantly. Cold. Wet. Heavy. And then. A voice spoke beside his ear. Not loud, not whispering. Just present. You left before it saw you. His blood turned to ice. Because the voice sounded like his father. Andriy turned sharply. There was no one behind him. Only fog. Thick enough to erase distance. Close enough to feel inside his lungs. His father's voice had not echoed. It had not faded. It had simply stopped. You're not real, Andriy muttered. The fog shifted. Not blown by wind. Moved. As if something inside it adjusted its position. Then the voice came again, calm, familiar. You were meant to stay. Andriy forced himself forward, toward where the church should have been. He walked slowly, counting steps. 30. 40. 50. The fog thinned just enough for a silhouette to appear. The wooden church stood ahead. But its front door was gone. Not broken. Not open. Gone. In its place, smooth planks. Seamless. As if it had never existed. The bell rope hung motionless through the tower opening. Yet the bell began to move again. Backwards. Swinging against gravity. No sound came from it. Only motion. Through the narrow window, Andriy saw shapes inside the church. Villagers. Standing in rows. Facing the altar. Not moving. He recognized some of them. Mikhailu. Old Katerina. Even the postman. Their eyes were open. Unblinking. But they were facing something at the altar. Something tall. Not human-shaped. Something vertical. Like a column of thicker fog. And from it, thin strands extended, barely visible, touching each villager's forehead. Through the narrow window, Andriy saw shapes inside the church. Villagers. Standing in rows. Facing the altar. Not moving. He recognized some of them. Mikhailu. Old Katerina. Even the postman. Their eyes were open. Unblinking. But they were facing something at the altar. Something tall. Not human-shaped. Something vertical. Like a column of thicker fog. And from it, thin strands extended, barely visible, touching each villager's forehead. The column shifted. Slowly turning toward the window. Toward him. Andriy stumbled back. The fog outside thickened instantly. The voice returned, no longer only his father's. Now layered. Many voices. Old. Young. Male. Female. You left before it saw you. You left before it chose. You were not marked. His chest tightened. What are you? He demanded. The answer came without hesitation. We are what remains when memory stays too long. The fog brushed against his face. Cold, but not wet. More like pressure. Like fingers. Suddenly, burning pain shot through his wrist. He gasped and pulled up his sleeve. A faint gray symbol was forming on his skin. Circular. Intersected by lines, the same symbol carved above his father's fireplace. The one he thought was decoration. It pulsed once. Then dimmed. You are seen now, the voices said. Images flooded his mind. His father sitting alone at night. Staring into fog at the window. Whispering responses. The villagers gathering every 12 years. Waiting. Not for death. For selection. The fog did not kill. It absorbed. Not bodies. Presence. Those taken still stood. Still breathed. But part of them belonged to it. Bound into the mist. Extending its memory. The village was not haunted. It was anchored. The voices softened, almost regretful. One must remain unmarked. To remember the village. To restart the count. Andriy. The column inside the church shifted closer to the window. You left. You were spared. But you returned. The mark on his wrist began to glow faintly. The fog pressed closer. And now, the voices layered into one. You are balanced. The church window cracked. A thin line running from top to bottom. Like something inside was preparing to step through. The crack in the church window spread silently. Not shattered. Not exploded. Just parted. Like ice separating on a frozen lake. The column of dense fog inside leaned toward the opening. Toward him. The strands connecting it to the villagers' foreheads tightened. Andriy felt the mark on his wrist burn hotter. The voices merged again. You are balanced. One must remain outside. One must remember. And then he understood. Every 12 years, the fog chose several villagers, not to kill, but to bind. To preserve the village within itself. Memories. Voices. Time. But one person had to stay untouched. Unbound. To anchor the living world. To speak of seasons. To count years. To age. His father had been that person. That was why he always seemed distant. Why he stared into the mist but was never taken. He remembered for them. Alone. But Andriy had left. When he moved to the city, the balance broke. There was no unmarked one. No anchor. So the fog thickened. Expanded. Stopped moving. Waiting. For correction. For him. The column pushed through the cracked window without resistance. It did not step. It unfolded. Tall. Vertical. Shifting. Not a creature. Not a ghost. Something older. The fog around Andriy thinned slightly, forming a circle around him. A space. A choice. The mark on his wrist pulsed again. If you join, the voices said, another must return. If you remain, we retreat. The meaning was clear. If he allowed himself to be bound, someone else would become the anchor. Another child. Another generation. But if he refused, he would take his father's place. Alone. Images flooded him again. Village winters. Children running through snow. Harvest fires. Weddings. Funerals. Centuries layered into the mist. The fog was not evil. It was accumulation. Too many memories. Too many dead who were not ready to disappear. The mountains kept everything. And sometimes they overflowed. Andriy clenched his fist. The mark glowed brighter. He stepped backward. Out of the circle. I remain, he said. Silence followed. Not anger. Not disappointment. Acceptance. The column slowly withdrew. The strands detached from the villagers inside the church. One by one, they blinked. Confused. Alive. The crack in the window sealed. The fog around the village trembled. Then began to move. For the first time that day. It rolled backward, climbing the slopes of the Carpathian Mountains. Retreating. When dawn came, sunlight returned fully. Shadows existed again. Smoke rose from chimneys. The villagers spoke of dizziness. Of strange dreams. But nothing more. Only Andriy remembered clearly. The mark on his wrist had faded. But it had not vanished. It would never vanish. He stayed. He repaired the house. He walked the roads at night when mist gathered lightly, and sometimes, when the valley grew too quiet, he heard whispers drifting from the slopes. Not calling. Not demanding. Just reminding. He would never leave again. Because one must remain unmarked. One must remember. And when the fog returns in 12 years, it will pass over the village. And stop at his door. But it will not enter. Because this time, it has already chosen.